Hello, friend. The Mystical American Patriots Society is transmitting to you from beneath 4 million cubic feet of solid granite, in the burning heart of the Yellowstone caldera. This is a variety program for normal sandwich-eating Americans with some concerns about living in a deranged, post-Christian technocracy. So, keep your third eye on the sky and your ear to the ground, as Sumo and Smokestack connect your main brain vein to a higher plane. Are you ready? Stand by.
Crawl out through the fallout, baby, when they drop that bomb. Crawl out through the fallout with the greatest of aplomb. When your white count's getting high, hurry, don't delay. I'll hold you close and kiss those radiation burns away. Crawl out through the fallout, baby, to my loving arms. Through the rain of strontium-90. Think about your hero when you're at ground zero, and crawl out through the fallout straight back to me. Crawl out through the fallout, baby, you know what I mean. Crawl out through the fallout, 'cause they said this bomb was clean. If you cannot find the way, just listen for my song. I love you all your life, although that may not be too long. Crawl out through the fallout, baby, to my loving arms, while those ICBMs keep us free. Think about your hero when you're at ground zero, and crawl out through the fallout straight back to me. When you hear me call out, baby, kick the wall out and crawl out through the fallout straight back to me. Hello.
Hi.
Good evening.
You gotta love that tune. Yeah, it's nighttime show again.
Yeah.
Everybody get pumped.
Show. I know I played that song earlier, I'm pretty sure, but I need to play it again today because it's topical.
Sweet. I was wondering if you had just forgotten.
No, I played it before, but it's topical today.
Sweet.
And I didn't have many other songs about nuclear annihilation in the docket.
No, there's not. There's not.
I've
many.
usually only got one song prepared for each theme of the apocalypse.
Mm-hmm.
Like I have, of course, for zombies, you've got what says, we just want to eat your brains. It won't be unreasonable, like no one's gonna eat your eyes. We just want to eat your brains. And then there's that one,
mm-hmm.
which is I think it's called RE your brains. It's about
like an email subject.
Yeah, it's about a guy in the office, and he's locked in the office, and his partners are turning into zombies.
Oh yeah.
And then then one of them's like, "Listen, just let us in. I don't think you." My favorite line is, "How's it go? I don't think this plan, you've thought it through enough. You never had the plan for all that bigger picture stuff. Someday you'll be out of food and guns." And then he's locked in there. So I got that one for zombies. That one for apocalypse. Of course, there's also Radioactive Mama, but I haven't practiced that. Radioactive Mama, hold me tight. And also, that really is not the same without big band trumpets. Radioactive
I'll get a
Mama,
kazoo. Treat
me right. Radioactive Mama, we'll reach critical mass tonight. So there's that one. What other apocalypses? There's of course Hurricane. You know, you did the Bob Dylan thing, but
Mm-hmm.
so I've only got some. There's some alien ones,
Yeah.
but yeah, you were. We had to do a nighttime show because you were like this weekend, just sort of everywhere.
I was sort of everywhere. I did a lot of travel over the weekend.
You had a lot of travel?
What is that insane noise I'm hearing?
What?
I'm hearing like a crowd of people in the
Hold
background.
on. Yeah, sorry. I actually did some traveling too. I'm actually in Mexico this week.
Oh, okay.
I'm down here.
Is that what I'm hearing in the background?
Yeah, I'm in the. Hang on a minute. Hey, Ted. Yeah, while you're up, can you give me another basket of jalapeno poppers? Yeah. Yeah, no, just one. Ted?
Are you in a
solo
bar?
uno. Cesta de jalapeno peppers. Sí, gracias.
I don't know how this is gonna work.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I'm just down here. I'm sorry. I apologize.
You in Tijuana?
I'm in Cancun, you know, getting a little bit of... It was getting a little cold up in the States, so I just decided to fly down, you know, enjoy the sun for a bit. And...
Ted. Oh, you're hanging out with Ted.
Yeah, I mean, you know, he's supposed to be back now, but, you know, there's a lot of people up in the States, especially around Texas, having a really bad week.
Yeah.
And I felt really bad at suffering about it, and Ted, no, you're not, Ted, you're not supposed to be in the photos. You know that. Stop it. Now get away from the cabana boy, Ted.
Does his handler know about this?
His handler's me this weekend.
Oh no,
I know. Heidi, put your phone down. You've done enough. Stop. Ooh, okay, I got the poppers. Okay, gracias. Yeah. So this has just been a whole thing. Me and Ted have been down here, and you know, I kid, of course. I'm not actually in Cancun.
Oh, you had me going.
I know. It was so convincing, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was poetry, man. It was beautiful. Theater of the mind stuff.
It was theater of the mind stuff, but I was, I don't know. I was just thinking about Ted going to what a Chad move.
Yeah.
To just like the worst ice storm in a century hits your state, and you just up and leave for the tropics.
Well, I mean, who wants to hear a bunch of complaining? You know?
I know. I just letting you guys know, if I'm ever elected to anything, I will leave you in a heartbeat to go on vacation. If we're in the middle of a war,
yeah.
If we have a hurricane-driven AIDS epidemic, if aliens invade, if I've scheduled a vacation, I am going to be gone. So I sympathize with Ted in that respect.
Yeah.
I mean, realistically, there's nothing he could do, right?
You know, don't hate the player, hate the game.
Yeah, I mean, like a senator can't do anything during a state crisis.
Well, he could, he could open up his frozen house as some kind of a shelter. You know,
yeah,
maybe.
Or handed out water or something. They always want people to do like, why didn't you open up your house to the homeless or whatever? And then people that say that never open up their houses to the homeless.
Good point. I've never done that.
Yeah, because homeless people are often crazy.
Yeah. And
it's not a good idea.
I got kids, man.
I just thought that was a good lesson that Cruz was teaching. It's like, you know, there's this quote that went around this weekend. Is like, idolizing a politician is like believing a stripper really likes you.
It's so true.
It's true. Like, guys, they don't care.
They don't care for you.
Nobody cares. And people get caught in this thought pattern like, well, the Dems don't care about me, but the Ted Cruz is on my side. Yeah. Lindsey Graham is based on red pilled. Ted Cruz would sell out Texas in a heartbeat for $1.
Yeah.
And Lindsey Graham would do the same for Kentucky or wherever he's from.
South Carolina.
From wherever.
Good shot, though.
Wherever old closeted gay men are most likely to be from is where Lindsey Graham is from.
Wait, you're telling me Lindsey Graham might not be, on the level?
No, he's as straight as William F. Buckley.
William F. Buckley.
Which is to say, not at all. Which is to say, this as straight as every prominent male conservative in the Republican Party.
You got to really think where it went wrong when William F. Buckley can be up there sort of like doing this genteel Southern Belle routine and talking about economics, and nobody really stopped to wonder what's happening. Nobody saw that and said, I got some questions about the leadership of the movement. Man, let's just stop and figure out. No, nothing. It was just, they just kept going. They just kept, nobody stopped. Nobody thought.
I really, it's not an exaggeration to say that almost every male conservative in the Republican Party is gay. They're just behind closed doors.
A year ago, I wouldn't have believed that.
Yeah.
But now, yeah, maybe.
Because it's all one big part. And like Americans, I made this Facebook post, and I sometimes still post on Facebook. I don't know why. It's just a habit,
Yeah.
I sort of like watching the lives of people I know slowly deteriorate. Which is, I know that sounds dark.
A little. Yeah.
But, seeing them like get extremely fat, or like, oh, my dog is dead now, or like now I'm in my 7th marriage, or whatever. I don't know. It's just something. It's like a soap opera. I'm detached from the people enough that it's sort of like watching a soap opera.
Sure.
But I got on the Facebook and I said, I made a post that I got temporarily banned for. Where I said, America is becoming ungovernable because Americans are too dumb to be governed.
That got you banned?
Yeah, that's what I said. I said making fun of Americans in general is the most fair and honest thing one can do.
Yeah, man.
I didn't make fun of black Americans or gay Americans, or I made fun of just Americans in general. And I think Americans across the board would agree with that.
Yeah. Oh,
statement.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like, because what they are is, and I appealed Facebook, and Facebook said, no, it still violates hate speech. And they said, would you like to have your case reviewed by a person? And I said, yes. And they said, what would you like your complaint to be? And I said, I typed in, you are retarded. And sent that in. So my ban may last longer. I'm not sure. I think I violated some community guideline.
I think you violated someone.
Yeah. So, but like Americans are because they get caught in this, they're like, and Republicans do it as bad as Democrats. And really everyone's to blame, where they think like it's like Charlie Brown and Lucy with the football.
Yeah.
And they think, oh, this time they get up to like, guys, this time, look, really vote for me. This time we're really gonna stop having wars. Promise.
Right.
I know we've been saying that for 100 years, but this time,
peace.
This time, vote for me. I'm serious. We're gonna give you health care really for real.
Yep, and $2,000 stimulus checks.
And $2,000. And student debt's going to be canceled.
Yeah.
And I'm going to reduce the national debt and the GDP, and I will stop terrorism and COVID. And it'll be great. And then everyone's like, yeah, this time. And they get so worked up for it. Every single time, without exception. They get up there, and they're like,
psych,
and then everyone goes, well, but next time. And Americans, because they lie about everything all the time. That's just what you have to do to make it in politics.
Yep.
You have to lie as easily as you breathe. Like, Elizabeth Warren literally got up on stage, white as can be, looked everyone in the eyes in America, and with a straight face said, I am Native American. And she just tried to she said, I am an Indian.
Think about the chutzpah.
Yeah,
involved.
and everyone, and like most of the people were like, yeah, I guess so. I guess, by the way, my favorite new term for that is pretendian.
That's pretty good.
That's great. Pretendian. But the level of deceit you have to make it as any sort of big politician, or frankly as any sort of little politician.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you have to be able to just straight face lie about things that are plainly and visibly untrue. And if you do, Americans will reward you, because Americans, for some reason, like having the football pulled away over and over. They really just they have, I don't know, Stockholm syndrome or Munchausen by proxy.
Yeah.
Is Munchausen by proxy the one where you get someone real fat and then...
I don't know, man.
What is that one?
I don't know. I know about Stockholm, but I'm not sure about Munchausen by proxy.
Munchausen by proxy is, I think it's where you make someone else continue in their self-destructive behavior so that you could take care of them, so you have a reason for them to keep you around.
Okay, I'm
like
looking
it was
this
in
up.
that movie. It was in that movie with Stephen King wrote, where that guy ran his car off the road in the snow, and that lady that was a fan of his, because he was like a writer.
You're thinking of Misery. Yeah.
Yeah, he'd hurt his leg or something, and she kept trying to re-hurt him, so he would have to stay there forever, and she could keep taking care of him.
Oh, there's that scene where she like waxes feet with the sledgehammer. No, nothing. Deadline, data interruption. That's not good. Oh, Sumo, where did you go? Why won't you pay for better internet connections? It's so hard to be your producer.
Hello?
Oh, sorry. I was singing while you were gone.
Look, yeah, Munchausen by proxy.
Yeah. Munchausen syndrome by proxy is a condition where a caregiver or spouse fabricates, exaggerates, or induces mental or physical health problems in those in their care, with the primary motive of gaining attention or sympathy from others. There you go.
Right. That's American politics.
That's American politics? I was thinking more Stockholm, but okay.
Well, it's both. The
Yeah.
people in the bed have Stockholm syndrome.
Okay.
For the people doing Munchausen by proxy on them.
Okay, so the government are Munchausening by proxy.
Right, because they need Americans to be stupid and broke and dumb so that they need them.
Okay.
And
yep.
then the people in the bed want to keep believing that the government wants to really fix them.
Yeah.
Because
okay.
they're attached.
Sure.
So it's a new symbiotic psychosis I've invented.
Mm-hmm.
Called Munchausen syndrome.
Yeah, that sounds good.
And I mean, but think about every time, like Texas freezing, Houston flooding, Katrina, every hurricane in Florida, the yearly annual fires of California, tornadoes, lack of stimulus checks, health. Every time people are like, they're in trouble, they're sitting around waiting for the government to help them. How many times does it have to fail to happen until people realize they can't and won't?
Yeah.
Like, if I could spread one message to all of America, if I could have put it on a flag and waved above every city, it would be the words, "No help is coming."
Yeah.
No one is coming to say, and even if they wanted to, they couldn't, and they don't really want to anyway. And that's not like like no one cares about anybody.
There's not really any money in fulfilling political promises.
None. What would happen if you made black people's lives better? They would stop voting for you because they have no reason to be grievous.
Yeah.
Right? What would happen? Yeah, exactly. If you built the wall, you can't campaign on building the wall next time.
Yeah. Fair.
Right?
Yeah.
Like if I solve the problem, then I can't do the thing anymore. You know, and like it just is so annoying. And everyone is, and that's why I typed in on Facebook, "You're retarded," and because I was hoping the FBI would read it. It's really meant for them.
Yeah. Well,
like
they are retarded.
They are. They can't, because the government can't do it. Like, they can't even find the guys who left the pipe bombs at the Capitol or whatever.
Well, it's because they did it. Sorry.
Probably.
Sorry.
But like, cameras.
I'm just joking, guys.
Sorry. Cameras on every corner of that building at every intersection of that city, and nothing.
Yeah. You can't find that guy. Give me a break.
You are listeners. You are on your. Spread this message. This is the message. You are on your own.
Yep.
No one is coming. This is freeing, really, Because all this fear people have, they're being watched all the time. The government's going to come kick down their door because they like the wrong Facebook post or something.
Yep.
You know, it's not real. And all the FBI does anyway, they don't actually arrest any criminals. They just...
Entrap retards.
Entrap retards. It's the Federal Bureau of Incitement.
Mm-hmm.
Also, the 2000s, what they would do is they'd get a vaguely Arab-looking man, hire him for the FBI, send him to a mosque and try to convince some Muslims to blow up a car or something. And then when they said, yeah, we'll do it, then they arrested them.
Yeah.
That's all they do. And now they're trying to do it with, like, lonely, depressed white guys to try to get them to shoot up a school or for Hitler or something.
Yep.
That's all they literally don't solve. I wish that Mulder and Scully were a thing.
So let's review the January 6th actors for a second, because this is a good little picture of what's going on here. Okay, the leader of the Proud Boys, that Enrique dude, ends up being a prolific federal informant for a long period of time. Okay?
First of all,
yes.
Why does every far-right extremist group have to be led by a Hispanic man?
I don't know.
It seems a continual pattern. I don't...
Wait, give me one other example. I don't know what you're talking about.
They just are.
Wait, now, I needed an example.
I can't remember the names of them, but so many of them have been like, I'm a Hispanic
This
guy.
is a professional podcast broadcasting platform here. You can't just throw stuff out.
All right, Mexico.
Mexico's a right-wing extremist organization led by a Hispanic?
Mexico is mostly brown people, right? But do you ever watch Telemundo?
Yeah.
Every person on Telemundo is white.
So it's like the reverse.
Exactly. There's like 1% white Hispanics in Mexico. And they put that they are on every TV station. Every weather girl is a white Hispanic, but they're all just, the president's always super white.
Right.
Mexico is a white supremacist state. It really is.
But that one's actually led by white people.
It's actually led by white. Right, exactly. But they're Latinos.
Uh-huh.
Right?
Yeah.
And now we have the Proud Boys trying to bring Mexico white supremacism here, and I am against it. I am on record as against Latino white supremacism. Because I'm trying to make America, America.
You did derail my examples about January 6th, though, completely. Although I will admit the list is not very long. But in its shortness, it is stunning in their influence. Because, okay, so what were, like, the big organizations there, okay? As far as, like, organized people, you had Proud Boys, which, okay, led by federal informant, entrapping retards, basically.
Mm-hmm. Retard.
Then the other one, Oath Keepers, right? So
yeah,
more than one of the very involved Oath Keeper organizers ended up being like retired FBI section chief, still has a security clearance. You think that guy would get to keep his clearances if he were doing stuff online in his own like real name with his real identity, organizing insurrections? You don't think they would take away his clearance like in a heartbeat? You don't think that? I mean, give me a break. This thing is such a sham. Okay. Also, the police officer that the New York Times was saying died of like he threw a clot because some MAGA person hit him with a fire extinguisher. Okay. Right. So that story was running during the whole impeachment trial. Oh, Trump was inciting insurrection. They're a violent insurrection. Well, so now, the day after Trump's acquittal, New York Times retracts the story. It says, oh, turns out we actually have no evidence that that officer died as a result of a head injury. We have no evidence at all of anything related to somebody getting hit with a fire extinguisher. We don't have any medical personnel saying that he even had a head injury. The whole thing was freaking made up. It was fake. The whole January 6th thing was top to bottom fake and gay deluxe.
Yeah, the Ashley Babbitt lady's not even dead. She's not even real.
Well, okay, film hit me to this, please. I have not seen this one.
Well, I mean,
are you just gonna discredit the whole thing with this by going over the top?
Well, I'm just look. Did you see the video of her? I don't want people because it's like because they don't watch someone die.
I saw it at length.
Did it look like what someone would look like when they're dying from a gunshot wound?
Well, I mean, if you catch it to the it depends where you catch the round. I mean, they're gonna have different effects. You can either be fully cogent and die of blood loss, or you can have your nervous system severely damaged and kind of spaz out a little bit. So, it depends on where they get hit.
Yeah, there's some rumors going around that she was also like FBI of some kind. She was, but hold on. Here's the thing. I know that sounds a little. It sounds
okay.
She was definitely an Air Force veteran.
Okay.
Right, and she had some clearance, to my understanding. Now I haven't. Have I looked this up thoroughly beforehand? No.
It's not how we roll.
Well, I do sometimes, but this was just spur of the moment.
Okay, yeah.
You brought this up, and I was like, but look,
right.
I'm just saying, when I kill a chicken, it spasms for like a while.
Yeah.
Like in movies, people get shot, and then they sort of go, and they die. Right. And they sort of look at the camera and give one tear roll down their cheek. Just like she did. But in real life, people it's not a clean affair when you shoot an animal.
Yeah, there's usually a lot of writhing and
there's a lot of writhing. There's a lot of sounds. Mm-hmm. It can be like 15, 20 minutes. Okay. And she just sort of it looks so much like a movie death.
I mean, I can see why you would think that it looked like a movie death. I mean, that doesn't mean it was, but
doesn't mean it was. But
having watched it, I can see what you mean.
Right, and I'm just everything else about it was fake. Why believe she was real?
I understand the sentiment.
Right. So I don't know. I mean, maybe. Look, Ashley Babbitt. I'm gonna speak to the dead here. If you're up in heaven and can hear me, and you're a real person and you died, I'm sorry for making light of you shouldn't have gone through that was sort of silly, to be honest. But I'm sorry for making light of you being shot in the wherever you were shot.
I think she probably knows now.
She's been forgiven. She's forgiven me.
Yeah.
So she's forgiven me, listener. Why haven't you? That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Ashley Babbitt has already forgiven me for questioning her demise.
Yeah.
So listeners should not be offended on her behalf, is what I'm saying. If she's even up there.
Right.
So.
She might be chilling in Florida. I don't know.
She might be chilling in Florida. She might, because, I mean, like, why was she, like, I'm going to crawl through the thing, and the guy, like, has a gun point. I don't know. Yeah. And then there's only the one. It's just and people around her don't really act like most people do when they got shot either. Like, in one of the tells of movies and TV is people are really bad at acting genuinely afraid. Mm-hmm. Like, watch look up on the live leak or something. People dying with gunshots in a gunfight. Yep. If it happens out of nowhere, people around go, and they freak out. Yeah. They don't just go, whoa, man, chill out. Mm-hmm. Like they do in the Babbitt video. Yep. So I'm just saying that Ashley Babbitt's spirit has forgiven me for this potential offensive thing if she's actually dead.
Well, I didn't know how we were going to top the offensiveness of our feminism episode, so I think maybe we just did that.
Well, I mean, it wasn't, like I said, she's not offended. And another thing that I do is I talk for behalf of the deceased. Right. I do not know. But I just feel like if someone is, and I'm assuming to her credit, she's in heaven. Mm-hmm. Right? And then I just feel like people in heaven have forgiven me already.
Oh, sure.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So there you go. So, case closed.
Okay.
Case, I'm washing my hands of it.
So, on that note, we've had a few Now, I just want you to check out how smooth the segue is going to be.
Yes.
You need to tell people where they can buy your book and what it's called.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
We've had some questions.
Yeah, all right, so here's the thing. My book is a good book. But I've discovered that the version up there right now is the beta version.
Okay.
In that, it took me a very long time to write the novel, right?
Mm-hmm.
And by the end of it, I couldn't stare at it anymore, and I just had to get it out the door.
Yeah.
And the story is there, and it's completed, but when I got the print, I couldn't look at the screen anymore. When I got the print, I noticed that there are some typos, more than I would like. You always get typos in a book. So I'm in the process of going through and correcting those. So you'll see like a misspelled word here or there. But,
Yeah.
so if you would like to wait a month for me to get up the corrected version, I will. But you can go ahead and buy now if you want to. Right? But I just I couldn't look at this. You're done with the book when you hate it. Like, I'm so sick of writing this thing. Because writing is rewriting.
Yeah.
You write it, and then you write it again. And I went through like 9 drafts. Because the story doesn't, and that's what you got to do. Because you write the thing, and you're like, wait a minute. What I have the people doing now doesn't make sense what they did in chapter 3.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to go back and say, do I want to toss this, or do I want to go back and toss chapter 3? And then if I do that, I have to toss everything between there and there.
Yep.
And it's and I would do that, and I get to the very end and be like, I don't know how to end this thing. And then I finally figured out an ending, and then I had to go back and then so it was a thing. It was like a 3-year to do. So I just couldn't look at it anymore. So I made a print copy, and it's printed, and now I'm going through reading it myself. And I don't hate it anymore because I've taken such a long break from it. But now I can see like, oh, that should be every, not even, or whatever.
Yeah, rookie
so
mistake.
There's a couple of those.
Mm-hmm.
But if you want to buy it now, it's The Stories of Waylon, Volume 1. Volume 2 is up there, but it's not. Like I said, that one doesn't have the cover art on there yet or anything. And it also needs the thing. The cover art's in the works for Volume 2. Mm-hmm. But it's The Stories of Waylon, Wayln, by Yoshi, like the dinosaur in Mario, Matsumoto, Matsumoto. That's where sumo comes from, Matsumoto. Get it? See?
When you say up there, do you mean on Amazon?
On Amazon.
Okay, there you go, people. It's on Amazon. The Stories of Waylon.
So, like
parts
I
1
said,
and
you
2.
can wait for them, and we'll maybe put a link on the thing.
I'll put a link up on the
like
up on
I
the
said,
website.
If you can get it, it's not unreadable. It's just like, oh, you go through it, and you're, because you don't have when you're your own author, editor, and proofreader, it's a bit much.
He's but one man.
I'm but one man. So now I'm going through, and the like fully like proofread, as in correcting all the tiny typos version, will be up in a month or so.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to relax and get that one, but whatever, you can enjoy the version now if you'd like it.
So also speaking of our feminism episode with Zach Garris, I've gotten more feedback from female listeners on that episode than any other episode we've ever done. And It was starkly divided between that is the best episode you've ever done and, I'm going to murder you.
Well, I would ask them to search their hearts and ask Ashley Babbitt if...
I thought we had just cleanly walked away from that issue.
If Ashley Babbitt can forgive me for mocking her fake death...
You keep bringing her up.
Then they can forgive me for suggesting maybe some differences in their voting rights.
Yeah.
I just think that it's on them. It's on
you,
them.
ladies.
It's on them for being... Let me tell you a story. Ladies, I'm going to tell you a story.
Okay.
Once upon a time, there were 2 monks. Okay? And they were on pilgrimage. And these monks had their order had a vow, a deeply held vow, that they would never interact with or touch women so as not to threaten their vows of celibacy. Right?
All right.
So they were walking, and they came to a river, and there was a young girl there. She wasn't a girl. She was a woman, young woman. like early 20s, and she was dressed really nicely. She was on her way to a wedding, but she couldn't get across. But it had rained, and so she didn't want to get her dress muddy, and she was having trouble trying to get across this creek, because ordinarily she would just pick her thing up and walk across it, but she didn't want to get anything on her outfit. And so she's there, and the older monk, the two of them traveling, there's an older one and a younger one. The older monk sees this woman, and he picks her up and he carries her across and he sets her down, and she thanks him, and they walk away. And they continue on their pilgrimage journey, and the younger monk is fuming the whole time. He's like, he broke the vow. He broke like, how could he do this, right? We all had a solemn vow. So that night when they get to their camp on the side of the road and they're having their dinner, he can't hold it in anymore, and he says, listen, I've been thinking about why did you touch that woman? We had a like, what should I tell the abbot? Like, what is like, how do we address this issue that you've wronged? And the older monk put down his utensils and he said, son, I left that girl at the river. Why are you still carrying her? See? Mm-hmm. And that's the story, the challenge I want to make to those women that are upset. Is I left that issue last week or 2 weeks ago. Why are you still carrying it? Do you see? Do you see how that works?
Yeah.
So I think that
the ones that liked the episode, I think they could still carry it. That would be fine. But the ones that didn't like it, maybe they could leave it by the river.
Just everyone leave it by the river. You know that time is a constantly flowing river. You never step in the same river twice, as Heraclitus said. The moment is past. It's over. And now we're on to a different moment where we make fun of people that may or may not be real or dead. And so that's where we are now. Yeah. And how upset were they on a general scale of 1 to 10? And what were their reasonings? Were they just like, because, you know, women like to do this thing where they're like, I'm going to kill you, but secretly that means they like are sort of being flirtatious?
You know, it varied. It varied. Yeah. I don't think anybody was really contemplating murder.
Right.
But I think there were some upset feelings, but also some very positive feedback.
Good.
As well.
Good.
And I'm gonna quote one of them, who said basically, well, if you're so upset about somebody saying you don't know something, then why don't you go know something? which I thought was pretty good.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, and that's Smokestack's advice to you ladies. Go know something.
Go know something. That's
anything.
Not mine. That's from one of our intrepid listeners.
Yeah, we're the older monk saying, why are you still carrying it? You know?
Yeah.
And so that is
we really smoothed that out nicely.
I think so. I think they're all happy now.
I think everybody's just feeling good.
Yeah, I think so. So, what else were we saying? There was something else.
I need some listener help.
Right.
I would like to do a segment about. Well, let me set this up a little bit. A lot of people complain about the city that they live in. A lot of people love the city that they live in.
Sure.
How do you know you're right? In your complaint, or in your compliments of your city that you live in? Because, you know, most people don't live in that many cities. Some people travel around a lot, but how do you know? And so I want to put together a list of practical ways to judge the merit, the greatness, or the damnation of your city. Okay? So I'll give you one popular example. The shopping cart test. Have you heard of this?
Oh yeah. But
the shopping cart test goes a little bit like this. Walk around your neighborhood, visit the shopping areas of your neighborhood where people use carts, mostly grocery stores or big box stores, and just cruise through the parking lot and see, are there shopping carts are they put away in the corrals where you're supposed to put them, or are they just left all over the parking lot? And this will tell you if they're in the corrals, that the people there will go out of their way to do something for the order of your society, even though it really doesn't benefit them at all. They're going to spend some extra time and calories to put the cart away, just to do the right thing, keeping the lights on in Western civilization. If the shopping carts everywhere, then nobody cares. Nobody really, nobody's going to clean up the graffiti either. Nobody's going to pick up the trash. Nobody's going to, change the light bulbs on a timely manner in the light fixtures along the road. Whatever, that sort of thing. So the shopping cart test, that's a good one. But there's a bunch of different ways. And particularly, like, what are some of your personal favorite things about your city or cities you've been to that you can say, oh, this is a great city because I see X or Y, or it's a crummy city. So I want to hear about that. Send it to me. You can fill out the contact form at mapsoc.org, or you can hit me up on Twitter, SMKSTCK1 is my call sign on Twitter. So let me know how to judge a city.
That's a good question. And I always like, for some reason now, when people comment on the website, I get a text message, which I'm not complaining about. I enjoy. I just don't know how it happened.
Oh, I send them to you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
They go to my email, and then I just shoot them to you.
Oh, okay. Because I was like, I didn't change anything. I don't know. But anyway, and I like the way you have it set up where you have the comment, and then you have a question at the bottom, do you understand? And no one ever flips it so it says no, so I always sound confused.
Well,
like, they have a comment, and they goes, do you understand? No.
Yeah, well, there's two answers to that question, do you understand? And both answers are no.
Oh, good.
That's how the form works. You cannot...
Yeah, because that's really truth. Yeah.
Yeah, we're trying to humble the listener.
What are you, besides the shopping cart test, I'm trying to think of how I judge a city.
Mm-hmm.
And, I don't know. I judge a city for how many people how many people are sort of like on the outskirts.
Okay.
Like if you're in, say you're in, I don't know. You're in, you're somewhere in Denver, right?
Mm-hmm.
Though Denver is a very mountainous place, there's there's no one on the. It includes everybody.
Okay, gotcha.
This isn't making any sense.
No,
I understand that.
But let's just keep going.
But there's no. But like on some cities, there's like a subculture of outcasts.
Yeah.
And those people, they always make life a little interesting.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I'm going for right now.
Okay. Is there a healthy counterculture, under subculture kind of stuff going on?
Well, or an unhealthy one.
Okay. Yeah.
Like that's fine too.
Yeah, sure. Just as long as it's there.
As long as there's, like Denver, you can't be different in Denver.
Right.
Everyone goes to REI and gets mountain climbing equipment they will not use.
Mm.
And then they look at the mountains, and then they do their pot. And and they go to the airport with the giant demon horse.
Mm-hmm.
Which we have to do a show on at some point.
There's a lot of crazy stuff. I have some personal experiences from the Denver airport that I can share.
Oh, good.
So we'll do a show on that.
Yeah. So, but yes. So Ted Cruz. The thing with the Ted Cruz and Texas freezing over was interesting because it briefly rekindled the green versus fossil fuel energy debate, which has been sort of sitting on the back burner for a while.
Yep.
And so I wanted to briefly discuss the theology of fuel.
Okay, that sounds cool. Well, can we talk just a moment about the actual nuts and bolts of the situation? Because I do think we have some valuable info to share, or at least I do. I don't know if you do.
Yeah, go for it.
All right. So I did some research on the nuts and bolts. I talked to some people in the energy industry, particularly in distribution. And here, I believe, is the straight dope, and it's going to just make all the polemicists kind of mad. Mm-hmm. Okay, here's what happened in Texas. Every late winter, demand typically is low for electricity because all the big ice events have already passed, and so outages for different plants are scheduled for late winter. Okay, because it's low demand, low interruption, energy's cheap. So when a plant has to do maintenance, they call it an outage. They shut the plant down for a month or two, change some parts out, do maintenance, and then they bring it back online. And the distribution authority who makes sure there's enough electrons flowing through the system at all times, schedules all these outages and says, oh yeah, you can do one during February and you can't. So they're kind of making sure that the supply is going to be met. Now, they had a whole bunch of outages, as is normal, planned for this period of time when typically there are not any severe weather events. Then a severe weather event happened, including a lot of unusually cold weather. So they already had the outages. You can't just turn the plant back on. So they had that to deal with. Then the supply lines to several nuke plants, water supply for the cooling and steam generation, the supply lines froze up. So then those nuke plants tripped off the grid too. And suddenly there was a critical shortage of kilowatts. Now, did some of the windmills freeze up? Yeah, some of them did. They did get them back online with some extraordinary measures. Was there snow and ice on the solar panels? Yes, but those things are motorized and they tilted into the sun. And they were actually able to get those back online pretty quickly. Whereas the outages and the frozen nuke plants, that took a lot longer and to get everything running again. And that's the bulk of the outage was due to that. It was basically planned outages during a freak weather event, and you just can't turn the plants back on. You can't do
it. It wasn't it was just bad timing.
It was one of those things. And I don't think it was really anybody's fault.
Yeah, no, because it was like a once in 100 years freeze.
Yeah.
And it just happened to come at the time when they do their routine plant maintenance on a lot of stuff.
And there's a lot of reasons to hate green energy. I hate green energy. I think it's stupid.
And I like green energy, so we represent both sides of the equation.
But for our purposes, neither one of us have a good argument in this happening.
Right.
So there, the audience has been informed.
Nuclear is green to me.
Yeah, it pretty well is green. Yeah. I agree with that.
And you know what else is green? Almost all the Bitcoin mining.
Sweet.
It's actually true because the people do it. It's only profitable if you can do it in places where you have really cheap electricity. So a lot of it's like hydro dams and stuff. Anywho, the theology of fuel. I was thinking about like why is this fuel issue and like this energy such like a partisan thing? Because it doesn't make sense on the surface. Like why people that care like are sort of more religious and like family values and stuff also have a big stick about coal. Okay. And then it doesn't make sense like why people that like want socialism hate oil, right? Like a lot of socialist countries were funded by oil.
Yeah, true.
It's not why is it this thing? And as I was thinking about it as this sort of popped off this week, last week, whenever, and I sort of realized that it sort of comes down to like the way you view the earth and man. Okay, so let's think about this for like conservative side. Okay. The belief that God would allow us to destroy the world is unacceptable because they believe that God is in control of all things. He cares about nature and the world, and he would act as a check on man's hubris if we ever actually had that capability. Mm-hmm. So they think like, what you're worried the Earth's going to be destroyed because we're what? Using cars? You're insane. God, it's like that. One, they don't believe that we are that powerful enough to do it in most cases, and two, they think like, oh well, actually, God wouldn't let that happen even if we were, right?
Yep. And
then on the other side, well, I mean, I guess oil and gas feels sort of caveman-like because you're still just lighting things on fire.
Sure. Yeah.
Right, which is the way we've made energy for forever.
It's not a utopian aesthetic.
Right, you're lighting. I mean, it's inherently more physical. I guess lighting things on fire is inherently more conservative.
Yeah.
Right,
okay.
Because the caveman would chop down the wood and light it on fire, and then you just take the coal and you light it on. It's more physical, and that also gets into like the whole like. It's the same with the like food divide, like the dietary divide, like eating meat, very physical. Mm-hmm. And the animality of man. It's sort of eating meat and accepting yourself as both dual animal and spirit being.
Yep.
But also the fallen world and like, yeah, but I got to eat the animals because we live in a fallen world.
It's not very modern.
Right, and it's also, there's like a hierarchy of species. It's like this species is worth more than the life of that species, right?
Indeed.
Which is hard for, because if you don't hold man as the highest created thing, it's like, well, then why do you get to eat the cow, right? Is the cow's life. Now but never seems to get through to people is that other animals don't ask that question. Like wolves aren't like, why do I get to eat the deer? They're just like, I'm going to eat the deer.
They might think of that. I don't know. How do you know?
Well, they may think of it, but they never. If they think of it, they always come up with a good reason for why they eat the deer.
Yeah, they're not losing sleep. I think that's
they don't. Yeah, they don't ever come up with. They don't ever ask the question and then talk themselves out of eating the deer.
Yeah.
Right. Which is also what people do for the most part.
Yeah.
We ask the question and then say, well, but whatever the answer is, barbecue. But so on the leftist side, like there's no God and there's no plan.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
So it's all up to us.
So you could destroy the world.
Yeah.
There's also a Gaia Earth nature worship thing going on there.
Right.
But also, and this was, it's like, it goes back to like Genesis, because it's like, if oil is fossil fuels, then evolution is the thing, and the Earth is old, and then everything's meaningless nihilism. Because we literally just fuel ourselves by the corpses of animals that came before and went extinct.
Which is fake.
Which is probably fake. This is what I want to talk. Like fossil fuels, okay, probably not from fossils. Hear me out. This is probably a total misnomer. Like, first of all, lots of countries in the world right this second do not believe that oil comes from a biological source. Did you know that?
I didn't know it, but I believe it. Because I don't believe it comes from a biological source either.
Right. Russia, Brazil, a few others, they have a model that that oil is made from chemical pressure and heat processes within the earth itself. That it's just produced by the earth like granite is, or magma.
Yep.
And that it is, and they use that model, that scientific model, to go and find oil wells to fairly good success, at least as good success as we do.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, well, they're not really, their model of where it comes from is different, but they're getting the same results. So, bo da boo. But then the other one is, it's like, we should be they've been saying we're going to run out of it for ages, and it never happens.
Indeed.
So that would, since the phrase peak oil was come up with in, I think, the late 40s, maybe early 50s.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, we're going to reach peak oil. And then the oil is going to be, and it's like, well, that didn't happen, did it? Like, there's still lots of oil. People go, oh, we figured out new ways to find the oil and fracking. There's still just a lot of normal drilling going on. Speaking of Texas,
a lot of the old wells fill back up over time. You can pump them again. Yeah.
Drive into Texas and smell the gasoline.
Yeah.
Like driving, it's just like, I mean, so where does it keep? It just seems weird that dead dinosaurs and plant life from millions of years ago would have basically all turned into oil.
Yeah.
And then, do you know what I mean? Okay, now here's where I was thinking this. I was like, yeah, maybe. But then I was researching it a bit. And coal really threw me over the edge on fossil fuels being fake.
Coal did.
Do you know what the main narrative... Now, they've changed this because they realize it was retarded.
Mm-hmm.
And they say, well, the science is different now. And their new science is also silly. But do you know for years, for decades, where the main theory of where coal came from was?
No.
No joke. The theory and it's still somewhat popular. They're trying to move away from it. Mm-hmm. But was that for millions of years, there were trees and they lived, and then they died and they blew over and fell over just like they do now. However, back then, there were no, as of yet, bacteria that had evolved to eat the trees, so they just piled up and never decayed forever. In these giant piles, and this sounds ridiculous because it is, these giant piles all over the planet of dead tree logs then get covered by erosion and smash down, and all their carbon becomes coal. And they call this period of time in the planet the Carboniferous phase.
Yeah.
Just like conifer, but carbonifer or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Like tree carbon. And that's where coal comes from. Now, first of all, just imagine for a second thinking under the evolutionary model that somehow trees outpace the evolution of bacteria.
Yeah.
That is so dumb. Like, oh, there was trees, and those came from wood before, and like grasses, and they grew up into trees and all this stuff, but bacteria just couldn't catch up. That's so stupid. That the idea that I've never seen anything bacteria not eat. Bacteria gobbles up anything that's decaying. Like, what do you mean? There were like a million years where there were no bacteria that ate wood, dead wood. That is so. And then when you bring this up, people are like, "Ah, well, that was the idea at the time, and the new evidence, and we think maybe there was blah 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 blah."
Well,
right?
apparently they didn't have lightning at the time either that would have caught all that on fire and incredible bonfires, forest fires and stuff.
Yeah, the world would just be a giant log. I don't understand what they were even thinking.
Oh, man.
But that's where coal comes from, allegedly. And then you say, wait, that's not true, obviously. So, probably fossil fuels aren't, that's a total misnomer. They're not from fossils in any way.
Yep. We really should drop that verbiage.
And when you look at them, when you look at how it happened, it was basically they started really industrially using coal and oil at the same time they started coming up with evolution, and they just put them together. There was no reason. There was no reason for this. And I get, as I've said before, I'm not like against the stuff. I'm not like against the old Earth. It's fine, whatever. I'm also not against the young Earth. I'm largely agnostic on the matter.
Okay.
But it's silly to say that coal comes from piles and piles and piles of trees that fell over that nothing could consume. And then if oil really comes from dead dinosaurs, it should be not coming back.
I'd be surprised. I know that like the education and government complex still probably believes in the idea of fossil fuels, but I'd really be surprised if geologists working for the big oil exploration companies still operate under that model. I'm willing. Maybe if anyone in our audience can enlighten me as to the position of most geologists, not in academia, but in the oil industry, where you think oil and coal come from, I would love to hear from you.
Yeah, me too. Like I said, I learned that Russians and Brazilians, at least, do not operate under the idea that oil is a biochemical thing.
Well, their research institutions are a lot less politicized than ours.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm just saying this is some of the things. Maybe oil is also fake and gay. Maybe coal is. Maybe everything is fake and gay, and everything has always been fake and gay, forever and ever and ever. But the more I look into things, the more I'm like, okay. But let's leave that aside and talk about something practical.
Okay.
Because today's show, can you guess what today's show is on?
Fallout.
Pretty close. It's nuclear war survival.
Sweet.
And I'm basing this on my book called Nuclear War Survival Skills, which was first published in 1979 by Crescent H. Kearney. And it's this book I have, and it's a nice big green book, and it says Life-Saving Nuclear Facts and Self-Help Instructions. And it's sort of like the book version of like those 50s ads where they'd be like, and now, kids, we get under our desks and put our helmets on to prepare for, sort of like that, but in a book, in a book form.
Yeah.
But it's also, it's a pretty well, I mean, it's not like a lightweight book.
Okay.
Like the foreword about the author is by Dr. Eugene P. Wigner, who was a Nobel laureate, and at the time of the writing of this, May 1979, was the only surviving initiator of the nuclear age. So he knew. You
Cool.
think he knows what he's talking about?
Yeah.
Right. And the Kearney fellow, the guy that wrote it, he was a Rhodes Scholar, 2 degrees from Oxford.
Mm-hmm.
And what got him, he observed firsthand the preparation made, that the difference early prep made to the survival rate of the English during the aerial attacks of World War II.
All right.
Right. So he would like, oh, these places that prepared, there were a lot less casualties.
Yep.
And then as the Cold War went on, he dedicated most of his career to like taking that same idea and saying, can I come up with simple techniques and preparations ordinary people can do with ordinary tools to survive a nuclear blast?
Cool.
And that's what he did. And in 1964, he joined the Oak Ridge National Lab's Civil Defense Project, which was a thing that really should still be around. The civil defense.
They built a lot of cool bunkers all over the country.
Yeah, the Civil Defense Project was like, okay, we're all gonna, it's the Cold War, we might get invaded, we might get bombed, let's all have plans in our neighborhoods and communities for emergencies. That should really still be a thing. If for nothing else, natural disasters. Right? It wasn't like Texas freezing or something.
Yeah.
But instead we just want to rely on FEMA camps because we like having the football pulled away from us for our politicians who tell us next time, I'm going to get the trailers there and it's going to be fine. I know the past 100 times nothing has happened and everyone just sort of drowned. And literally the last time Texas was in a problem, the only thing that helped was a bunch of people coming from all over with their fishing boats.
Yep.
Paddling
Cajun
around.
Navy.
But this time, I'm really going to get the help there when you need it. Promise.
Yeah. Yep.
Right. But anyway, the civil defense thing, Kearney was also, he was also tasked with coming up with tools and equipment for soldiers in the jungles of Vietnam.
Mm-hmm.
And in the World War II fighting in the Pacific Theater. So he did a lot of like military stuff and like practical, what can you do to survive tools. Right? And he wrote this nice book. It has all this, he built everything in here that he's suggesting. He built and tested himself. With the help of various experts and physicists, and Mormons are actually listed in here as a help.
The Mormons are great at survival stuff.
Yeah, because that's in their book, is that everyone should be a prepper.
Yep.
And so it goes into like detail of like, and here's exactly construction plans for building a shelter. You know, like the whole 9 yards. But anyway, so I thought we'd go through it, and maybe dispel. This isn't like a dog whistle, by the way, that I think we're about to get into a nuclear war. Woof woof. You see what I'm saying? Okay. But if we were, woof woof, maybe you would, maybe this would be beneficial.
Did dog whistles go woof woof?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know.
When you blow a dog whistle, it goes woof woof woof, and it calls the dogs.
It's just too high for us to hear it.
Right.
Right. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I learned something today.
Yeah. So from the introduction of this book, I'm going to read you this little quote here. Your best hope of surviving a nuclear war in this century is the self-help civil defense.
Yeah, baby.
Hold on, can I do this in an old-timey radio voice?
Please do.
I don't know. No. How's that sound?
That sounds great.
Okay. Your best hope for surviving a nuclear war in this century is self-help civil defense. Knowing the basic facts about nuclear weapon effects and what you, your family, and small groups can do to protect themselves. Our government continues to downgrade war-related survival preparations and spends only a few cents a year to protect each American against possible war danger. During the 10 years or more before the Strategic Defense Initiative, Star Wars weapons can be invented, developed and deployed, self-help civil defense will continue to be your main hope of surviving if we suffer a nuclear attack. I can't do that anymore. Hurts my nose.
It was good while it lasted.
You got to pinch your nose to do that. Most Americans, he continues, most Americans hope that Star Wars will lead to the deployment of a new weapons capable of destroying attacking missiles and warheads in flight. However, no defense systems can be made leak-proof. If Star Wars, presently only a research project, leads to a deployed defensive system, then self-help civil defense will be a vital part of our hoped-for, truly defensive system to prevent aggression and to reduce losses if deterrence fails. Okay. Right away, a couple things you notice from the introductory paragraphs. A, Star Wars never happened.
Yep.
And
We
that's
have
what,
things sort of like it now, but
it really sucks.
I don't know that they would really be of much good.
No, you can always shoot missiles faster than you can shoot things to intercept them.
Yeah.
It's like trying to shoot a bullet out of the sky.
Yeah.
And that one of the best reasons to read sort of old books is that you realize how many of the things they thought were going to happen just didn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
And going back to like medieval ages and classical ages, like in the future, we won't have to worry about X and Y because A and B will be there and there'll be no big problems. So instead it'll be Z and C. And it's all fake. All the predictions about the future are wrong. And that's good to remember. It's like when you hear today, like AI is going to take all the jobs. Fake.
Indeed.
Not going to happen.
Yep.
That's my big problem with Andrew Yang. He was like, yeah.
Go ahead.
No, you go. Attack Yang.
Okay, if you think AI is going to take all the jobs, you don't understand how economies work. Because if nobody has a job and doesn't make any money, they can't spend anything. Therefore, the economy doesn't. I mean, it's just you can't just remove human work from the planet.
Well, I mean, maybe you could. They just have to die.
Well,
right?
Okay. Also, not a good way to end that loop. You know?
Right. So, but like AI was like he was like truckers are going to be obsolete in 5 years. Meanwhile, if you just go to a jobs website, truckers have never been more in demand.
Yep.
There's just more truckers than ever desired now, right? And even if driverless trucks get on the road, okay, they're just going to ship things more effectively down the interstate, and you're still going to need people to like drive it from there to the actual warehouses in town.
Yep.
You may have even more. It's like in the 90s when they were like, computers will lead to a paperless world, and now there's just paper everywhere.
I'm buried in it all the time.
Just more paper. They always say it's going to be a paperless world. Paperless. And nothing. Right? And it's actually the main red pilling and radicalizing thing you can do is have a memory.
I got one for you.
Yeah.
So I've been interacting with Amazon's distribution service recently.
Uh-huh.
Guess how long it takes for a package full of units to get into Amazon's distribution channels and placed on the shelves so that they can then ship it to customers?
Ooh, I don't know. Guess.
I want you to guess along the lines of how vaunted and praised Amazon's logistics prowess has been and how they are held up as paragons and logistics magicians.
6 months.
You went the wrong direction.
I don't know. I thought you were trying to trick me.
It takes a ridiculous 2 weeks.
Oh.
2 weeks or more.
Yeah.
For something to go through their distribution system and just get placed on a shelf at a fulfillment center to get out to the customer. When that was an eye-opener for me because all I've heard about is how good they are, and there's like robots flying around the warehouses and little boxes are being flung through the air by drones. No. 2 weeks, man. They're not any better than USPS.
Yeah, and it's mostly most of their employers are people that are doing van life and want seasonal work. It's not robots. It's an old person that's retired and can't afford it. A house.
Nomads. Yeah.
And so, yeah. So, okay, so that's the first thing you notice is Star Wars didn't happen, everything's fake, and all the predictions don't come true.
Yep.
B, you notice how even in the late 70s, the government was already moving away from like citizen responsibility to centralized responsibility. Why? Who knows? Maybe because the baby boomers were all tripping acid and they didn't feel they'd be responsible enough to prepare themselves for nuclear war. Could be.
Could be.
But, I mean, it's not like it's the baby boomers' fault since the CIA was just tossing LSD at college kids for like 10 years.
Yeah. In
their mind control experiments. But yeah, so that's B, is that did. And then, C, the fakeness and gayness goes all the way back because today people compare everything to like Dumbledore and Hunger Games. And back then they were calling it Star Wars.
Yeah.
Oh, we're going to have Star Wars.
Yeah.
We're going to have Star Wars to defeat the Russian Death Star. with its and Reagan is just like Luke, and Yeltsin is his father or whatever. And but yeah, everything has always been that way. I bet back in the day, I don't have any evidence for this, but I bet back in like 1800 when they were doing the civil wars in 1870s or whatever, that people were like, and this is just like when Hamlet went to go sword fight. It's just the same. And everyone's always comparing things to whatever the latest fiction is.
Yeah, we're going to have a new government program called the Othello program.
Yeah.
That's going to do something incredible.
Or a new program called District 9, where we just put everyone in slums.
Yeah.
And, and then we bring the illegal aliens in.
Mm-hmm.
How cool would it be if it turned out Mexicans were actually from space?
That'd be awesome.
Mm-hmm. So anyway, a couple other points he brings up. I think we'll still agree remain unchanged, like 40 years later.
Okay.
Same mindset. He says, quote, "The average American has far too little information that would help him and his family and our country survive a nuclear attack. And many of his beliefs about nuclear war are both false and dangerous. One of these false beliefs is that nuclear war would be such a terrible catastrophe that it's an unthinkable impossibility." So he's saying, like, it's so bad no one would ever do it. That's that. It's like people are like, oh, well, they won't fire nuclear bombs because it would be so bad no one would ever do it.
Yeah.
People still spout that around. And his argument is, no, they will do it because it's actually not as bad as you think.
Yeah.
Okay? Second false belief, he said, if nuclear war were to break out, it would be the end of all mankind or possibly the world. And this is some of the myths we're going to discuss. Like, nuclear war would be bad. It's not a fun time.
No.
Right? It's not. But atomic bombs are bombs. They're big bombs, yes. World-destroying bombs, no. Kill everything on the planet bombs, no. Kill 20 to 40% of a city, maybe. That's not fun, right?
No. Yeah.
20% of a major city or 40% dying isn't fun.
But it's not going to set the atmosphere on fire.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. He said, he goes on to say, even if our country remained unprepared totally and were subjected to an all-out nuclear attack, many millions would still survive and could live through the difficult post-war years. So that's very lighthearted.
Yeah, I like it. He's got a cheery disposition on the whole matter. Yeah.
So let's start chapter 1, the dangers of nuclear weapons, myths and facts. Okay, myths and facts. So I'm going to go through the myths and facts.
Okay, sweet.
All right, I think there's 11 myths and facts. Let me get my big book out here. Boop-a-da-boop. Myth number 1. Fallout radiation from a nuclear war would poison the air and all parts of the environment, making it unlivable and possibly killing everyone. So myth number 1 is about fallout. Are you familiar with this myth?
Yes.
Okay. The idea that people have is that radiation poisons everything's radioactive for years, and the crops can't grow, people can't live there, your dog will die, don't drink the water, boo-da-boo, right? A fact. When a nuclear weapon explodes, so what happens is, if a bomb explodes near enough to the ground that it causes a crater, and not in the sky, the pressure kicks up a bunch of dust.
Yep.
Like a lot of dust. A tremendous amount of dust. Let's call it millions and millions of tons of dust. Fine. And then the fission fragments from the nuclear explosion attach themselves to these big dust particles. And they fall down out of the sky and pollute an area. Okay. That's what fallout is, right? It's called fallout because they fall out of the sky. That's literally where it comes from. They fall out of the cloud, the mushroom cloud, down onto the area, and they're still radioactive, and that's not the best. Right?
Yep.
Okay. However, some good news. One is that radioactivity follows exponential decay. And so, as time goes on, there's a lot less of it. So let's say 1 hour after the explosion, there was 1,000 Roentgen per hour.
Mm-hmm.
That's your dose level, 1 hour. in the area. Okay, then 2 hours afterwards, there would be 480 Rankine.
Okay.
So you're already about half, a little less than half.
Yeah.
Okay, but now, so it's 7 hours after, you're down to 100. 14 hours after, 43. 48 hours, 10. All right, so basically, 10 weeks 2 weeks afterwards, you're basically back to almost normal.
2 weeks is it?
About 2 weeks. And that's for a ground explosion that kicks up a lot of heavy dust.
So as long as you don't get buried in the dust and then just soak up all that stuff right after the blast, you're probably going to be okay in the fallout department.
Right, like if you were in a shelter, you should probably, like, staying inside for 2 weeks would be nice. And you could go out for a little bit longer, like, but don't stay out too, like, so a dose of 450 Rankine whole body exposure is said to be the LD50, which is lethal dose 50%.
Yeah.
50% of the populace will die at that dose. 450.
Right.
Okay. However, this is a quote from the book. People are always worried about cancer and stuff. He says, fortunately, the human body can repair most radiation damage if the daily radiation doses are not too large. A person who is healthy and has not been exposed in the past 2 weeks to a total radiation dose of more than 100 R can receive 6 R each day for at least 2 months without any being incapacitated.
Hey.
So it's not that bad. Also, from the Hiroshima bomb and Nagasaki citizens, we have a complete life history now of what happened to them. It said only a very small fraction of the Hiroshima and Nagasaki citizens who survived radiation doses, some of which were near fatal doses, have suffered serious delayed long-term effects.
Wow.
Ta-da. And that's true. Most of the people that were in the bombs, one guy which was in 2 bombs, which we've talked about, he was there in both,
Yep.
did not get cancer. It just didn't happen.
Yep. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, radiation is actually not that good of a cancer-causing agent.
That's because radiation isn't caused by random damage to your genes. Psst.
What?
That's not why. Yeah, come on, like the whole thing about cancer.
Yeah.
Was always, oh yeah, you get random damage to your genes, and then it causes mutation, and then that's where cancer comes from, and it's baloney.
Well, maybe I don't know about that. I like that
we'll
theory,
talk about.
though.
I hate that theory with a passion.
No, I like your theory that it's not, because that's the theory I thought was. But I always get excited when someone says something isn't so.
Okay, great.
So we'll talk about that later. But so anyway, it just didn't cause much. And another thing is, if it's a sky explosion, which they might want to do because that creates a bigger pressure wave and knocks down more buildings, right? That does not kick up a big crater, and all of the fission fragments and pieces are and they're very small, and they just sort of float around for a while with the wind. And unless there's a heavy rain or snow, they will just largely disperse and won't be in concentrations high enough to be a big problem.
Booyah.
Right?
Good.
So,
that's great news.
Yeah, so the fallout thing, not that, if you're near a ground explosion, yes. And there's a lot of falling dust, and yes. Maybe B, don't walk around outside for a while. But, don't be that upset. First of all, you could solve this by just purchase for our listeners, is a Geiger counter. You could test and see how much it was when you went outside. You can get those for less than $100.
They're really fun, too.
Yeah, they're fun. You can hold them up to people, and they always click because there's always a little radiation because you're on Earth, which is radioactive. And you can just freak out people. Like, oh, see that? It's radioactive. It's a great troll because it's just always... Or if you have some old Fiesta ware, which is radioactive, you could give it to people to drink their... Fiesta ware was this stuff made from like in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and they used some clay that was like radioactive or something, had a little bit of uranium in it.
Cool. And
they did that for like a decade until they realized it, and then they stopped making it out of that. But you can find old antique pieces that are still hot. My friend has some.
Yeah, uranium glass too, that green glass stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got some of that. It's still hot.
Yeah, it's still hot. So that's fun. And what radiation is, people don't even know this. But think of it as mostly light you can't see. It's the same thing, at least X-rays and gamma rays are, is the same thing as photons that you see, or radio waves for that matter, just at a higher energy. So you've got the visual band, and below the visual band you have like radio waves and stuff, and above the visual band you have like X-rays and gamma rays.
Okay.
And they are energetic enough that they can cause tissue damage in large quantities. That's what it is. It's not magical. It's just light being, just like if you have something that's hot and it produces, heat rays. You can't see them, but they're light. It's the same thing,
right?
And it can burn you at a distance. It's just, but if you go up in energy a little more, now it's not in the even burn you with heat, like physical temperature heat. It's just in a different, it's on a different level.
Right.
Right? That's all it is. There's other things. There's alpha particles and beta particles. Beta particles are just free electrons. Alpha particles are helium atoms with their electron shell stripped off, which sometimes happens in fission. And there's exotic things, but mostly it's X-rays and gamma rays is what you're talking about.
Gotcha.
Which is light you can't see. Nothing magical, just that's all it is. Okay. And it goes through, just like radio waves will go through your house, right? But photons you can see don't.
Right.
Same thing. They'll go through things, and penetrate. Okay, and which we're going to talk about next. Myth number 2: you can't escape the radiation. Right? And this goes into what gamma rays are. So gamma rays do go through your house, but just like if you've ever been in a thick building, you notice that it's hard to get cell phone service.
Yeah.
Same principle. If you have, so the half value layer, which is the thickness of a material it takes to reduce the amount of gamma rays by half.
Okay.
For the energy range of nuclear fallout, is about 3.6 inches, so let's say 4, of packed earth.
That's it.
By half. Cuts
wow.
by half. So if you have 5 halving layers, so the first layer you cut it by half, the next you go down to a fourth, the next you go down to an eighth, the next you go down to 16. If you have 5 layers of 4 inches, or actually 3.6, but let's round it to 4. So you have 20 inches of packed earth, you get 1/32 of the radiation.
Hey.
Right?
Yeah.
If you can do that, you can make a 20-inch earth wall in a bunker.
No problem. Yeah, all day.
No problem. Right? And if you go up to so that's like a little less than 2 feet. If you do a 4-foot wall, you get 1/1024th the radiation.
Awesome.
You just cut it almost to nothing. Almost enough. And you can do that with just earth. You can use concrete too. It's also good, but concrete's more expensive. Most people if you just build a wood frame, sturdy wood frame, cover it with lots of dirt, you're not going to get a lot of radiation inside, even if a bomb drops relatively close to you.
Yep.
For example, there is a picture in this book. It's figure 1.5, if you ever get the book, which is a crude wood frame shelter that was made for firebombs during the war, right? This family in Japan had made themselves a firebomb shelter. They made it out of wood and they covered it with earth. And it was about, I think they had about 3 feet. It was in Nagasaki. And it was 100 yards, a football field from ground zero.
Awesome.
Perfectly intact. Now
Did they use it?
The door blew open. If they were inside it, the pressure difference would have killed them. But but they've done tests. Kearney did some tests of metal poles and pole reinforced doors that people could construct on their own, and he found that even under that condition, if you had poles in the right position, which he then shows you later in the book how to put them, you could reinforce your doors to the point they wouldn't blow open.
Awesome.
So you could potentially survive if you had a bunker with 4 feet of dirt around it, in a reinforced door. You could survive at ground zero.
But you're just gonna have to stay in there for a week or so.
Yeah, it won't be a fun time. It'll be a little cramped, right? Have food and water, but you can actually do things and survive, like even a direct hit. Okay.
See, I always thought that if you're, within a few miles of ground zero, you're toast.
No, if you have 4 feet of earth protecting you in a nice bunker, At least in Nagasaki, they was fine.
Sweet.
So you could actually be relatively close. Again,
I'm feeling really positive about this.
Again, explosions follow the path of least resistance.
Mm-hmm.
And so the most of the force of an explosion is going to go down toward the Earth, and the Earth is going to redirect it out across the landscape.
Yep.
It doesn't go down very hard, right?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there's this nice picture of an undamaged, Earth-covered family shelter right in the middle of Nagasaki, just sitting there, and it's like you go inside, and it's like things are fine in here. So myth number. That was basically myths 3 and 4 I rolled together. Myth number 5, which is the myth of the big scary bomb, which is because modern H bombs are over 1,000 times more powerful than the A bomb that destroyed Hiroshima. These H bombs are 1,000 times more deadly and destructive, and therefore there's no hope. Like, oh yeah, maybe you can do it with the A bomb, but not the H bomb.
Mm-hmm.
No. Okay. So first of all. If exploded, so a nuclear weapon 1,000 times as powerful as the one that blasted Hiroshima, if exploded under comparable conditions, produces an equally serious blast damage to wood frame and other such structures to an area about 130 times as large. So it doesn't produce more blast; it just produces it over a larger area.
Okay.
More or less. So, not 1,000 times as large. So, for example, the A bomb destroyed or severely damaged most houses in a 1.42 mile radius from ground zero.
Okay.
1.42. Okay. If you used the H bomb, you would do the same thing over 16 miles.
Okay. So
not thousands of miles.
Not
from
huge.
1.4 to 16. Now that's not fun. A 16-mile radius of destruction.
Sure.
But it's not like if the next city over got bombed, you also were screwed. Right? It's like no, that city isn't a problem, but over here or even out in the suburbs.
Mm-hmm. Suburbs are going to be all right, guys.
I mean, maybe these things don't hit their targets 100%. It depends. They can be off by some miles.
Suburbs are probably going to be all right, guys.
So most of these calculations come from and in fact, what they do now, which is military doctrine, is they don't really focus on building giant H bombs for that reason. They focus on building lots of smaller bombs because the doctrine is you spread out the damage, like boom, 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 right? Rather than one big one in one area.
Right.
So most of the time, also, they're not going to... These giant bombs that they're capable of building, they don't actually build because it's more efficient to just build carpet bomb an area with them that you want to get rid of.
Or just focus on, smaller, cheaper, more efficient weapons on high-value targets.
Correct. Okay. Myth 6. A Russian nuclear attack on the United States. Remember, this was Cold War. So just replace Russia with China or North Korea, whatever you want.
Sure.
I don't know, an incel attack. An incel nuclear attack on the United States will completely destroy all American cities. Myth 6. Now, he says, a quote, as long as Soviet leaders are rational, so that's the big if. As long as the people doing this are rational, right? Big if. They would give first priority to knocking out weapons and other military assets.
Okay.
That prevent us from striking back. Fortunately, most of our ICBM sites and stuff are not near major population centers. The big problem comes when you talk about Navy, because a lot of the nuclear submarines and nuclear armed ships are obviously on the coastline near cities where people live.
Mm-hmm.
So that's your biggest danger area, really.
Yeah.
Is if you're near a Navy town, you may be in the crosshairs of a nuclear bomb. Just throwing it out there. So they're not. His point in this one is they're not probably going to target Kansas City.
Sure.
They're going to target unless there's a missile base in Kansas City, which there might be. They're going to target take out their missiles, take out their military targets. They're not going to target like your city just for the sake of killing a lot of people, maybe. Right? It's not like a military, but I mean, people have done that before. I find that one sort of dubious because people just do things. But anyway, myth 7: food and water will be poisoned by the fallout, so much so that people will starve and die, even if there is enough food and water. Fact: if the fallout particles do not become mixed with the parts of food that are eaten, no harm is done. Food and water in dust-tight containers are not contaminated by fallout radiation. Peeling fruits and vegetables removes essentially all fallout, as does removing the uppermost several inches of stored grain onto which fallout particles have fallen. Water from many sources, such as deep wells and covered reservoirs, tanks, and containers, would also not be contaminated. Water that is contaminated may be made safe for drinking by filtering it through earth, as described later in this book.
Sweet.
There you go.
Yeah.
If the particles, remember, the radiation doesn't stick to you unless it's these particles that have fallen out of the sky, which are radioactive themselves. If your food or water is covered or in a package, or even if it's a banana, if you take the peel off, you're good. Right?
Just don't eat the radioactive dirt.
Right. If it falls on a storehouse of grain, take off the top layer, maybe 6 inches, you're good. Right? The rest of it should be fine. And again, break out the Geiger counter if you have questions, which you should all buy less than $100. I'm just saying. Myth number 8. Most of the unborn children and grandchildren of people who have been exposed to radiation from nuclear explosions will be genetically damaged, malformed, delayed, the victims of the nuclear war. But we looked into it through Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The number of children born to parents who suffered through the attacks that had malformations or abnormalities was no greater than normal.
Yeah.
So, bum. There's really not that much danger of like your kids coming out with a third eye, unless you mean like, the third eye.
Yeah, that's different.
That this show provides.
Mm-hmm.
If you're listening to this show, your children will probably grow up with an awakened third eye.
Sweet. That's the good third eye.
But not like a one in Futurama.
Gotcha.
Right? Okay. Myth number, what are we on? 9? I don't like myth number 9. It's silly. It's something that was really, I guess, was a concern at the time. It's like, we'd kill the world. Oh no, this isn't the one I don't like. This is if we used all of our bombs, the world would die, basically.
Mm-hmm.
He says, these calculations of the deaths produced are based on the unstated assumption that somehow the world's populations could be gathered into circular crowds, each a few miles in diameter, with a population density equal to downtown Hiroshima or Nagasaki, and then a small Hiroshima-sized weapon be exploded over the center of each.
It could happen. Come on.
Right? Because he's just saying, like, you take the kilotons exploded, and then what they do, they get that number, they take the kilotons exploded, and they multiply, and then the deaths, and they say, well, we have this many more kilotons, therefore that many more deaths would happen, and that's more people than the world. But he's like, no, because people are actually spread out around the globe.
It'll just kill few people, many fewer people very efficiently and thoroughly.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Myth 10. Blindness and the disastrous increase of cancers will be the fate of survivors of nuclear war, because the nuclear explosions would destroy so much of the ozone that it would be far too much ultraviolet light would reach the Earth's surface. Even birds and insects would be blinded. I think this comes from like movies of the time. I've never heard this one.
Mm-hmm.
I think he says in here this was popularized in some movies, and also he blames who was the original Neil deGrasse Tyson? Carl Sagan.
Yeah.
He says Carl Sagan made a bunch of nonsense about this, but he cites a bunch of he cites no he rags on Carl Sagan for the next one. I'm sorry, but basically no, the ozone layer does not be destroyed. There's just not enough nitrous oxides produced.
More good news.
Myth number 10: nuclear winter. This idea is that the dust kicked up, again, dust is really only kicked up if it's on the surface, and most of them are designed to blow up in the sky. But let's say they were all blown up on the surface, then it would send up so much dust and stuff into the air that it would blot out the sun, and there'd be the years of sub-zero temperatures, and everyone would freeze. Okay. That one he blames on Carl Sagan and other stuff for problem. That theory was literally come up with by a Soviet scientist as a piece of propaganda to scare America.
And it worked.
Yeah, there was never anything behind it. I can't stress that enough. There was never any science behind that idea of nuclear winter. It was just a propaganda piece made up by a Soviet scientist to scare Americans. That's it. Nuclear winter's not gonna happen, and then he rags on Carl Sagan for promoting it, because Carl Sagan was the original Neil deGrasse Tyson, which is to say he was a fake scientist. I mean, Neil deGrasse Tyson, no, I was gonna say he's not a fake, but he is a fake scientist, actually, because he was just working at a museum.
Yeah.
And they were like, hey, you have a nice voice. Will you please come on TV and tell everyone that the world life is meaningless?
It does need to be appreciated by the people, the difference in actual scientists and academic and media scientists. Like, it's two totally different things now.
Yeah, in general, if you can do science, you're not like, we used to look. There was this guy, and I liked him. I won't say his name, obviously. But he was a professor at one of the schools I went to. And when everyone would talk about him, they go, "Oh yeah, I'll give him a fake name here. Let's call him he had a German name. Let's call him Kraut. Schnitzelkraut.
Schnitzelkraut.
Schnitzelkraut." They said, "Oh yeah, Schnitzelkraut," and they'd look around to see if he was there, and they'd say, he works in public outreach. Because that was a way of saying he's not good enough to do research, so we made him the public outreach person.
Yeah. Which is what Bill Nye is, and Neil deGrasse Tyson and Carl Sagan. And
I actually like listening to Neil deGrasse Tyson. I find his voice very soothing.
It is nice.
He wrestled in high school. I'd feel it, Mm-hmm. I feel like I'd have a good time with him.
Mm-hmm.
But most of the stuff is just he does public outreach. That's what people would say in the department when he would. And the thing is, Schnitzelkraut knew people said that, and he would always try to, like, whenever he got the opportunity, talk about how much good work he was doing, and everyone would be like, "Oh yeah," he always, even though he was a PhD, people always felt like he was the special needs child. Like, "Oh, you did such a good job." People always clap.
Schnitzelkraut.
You did the Schnitzelkraut. You did such a good.
We're so proud.
So finally, there's a few other, like, that's just the one. I just wanted to go over the myths and facts. And then he spends the rest of the book saying, like, here's what you do to survive this and this. And it's all very practical information. He talks about how to build a shelter, how to have, like, if you're worried about it getting trapped in there. He talks about when he built the shelter for Charles Lindbergh. And Lindbergh was worried he'd be trapped, and so they worked on a nice 2-exit shelter for Charles Lindbergh.
Mm-hmm.
And he talks about, like, how to store food, how to make a water filter, how to build a makeshift Geiger counter out of, like, household products.
Awesome.
I mean, he really did his research. He talks about, like, testing water from wells, siphoning, and it's protection against fires, carbon monoxide. It's great. It's a great book. It's nuclear war survival skills, right? But I need to finish the show with the obligatory MAPS take on it of, and again, this is just for completion, are nuclear bombs even real?
Yeah.
Or is all of this just the 80s equivalent of wiping down lobby chairs while wearing 2 masks to protect yourself from COVID? Like, oh, we got that A bomb. Now it's the H bomb. And then there's the nuclear winter. And you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The nuclear winter is basically the early version of the Brazil variant or whatever. Now it's the H bomb. You can't now. Yeah, I know you thought you were okay, but now it's the H bomb.
There's a Brazil variant? I haven't even.
I just made that up. I'm not sure.
Okay. Good.
There probably is.
Yep.
Okay. I'm increasingly inclined to think that, and again, I'm not saying nuclear bombs aren't real. We're just exploring this idea. You know,
This is a safe space. We can explore ideas here.
What was it? Aristotle that said the mark of an educated mind is to entertain an idea without accepting it.
It sounds legit.
Sounds like something he would say. Somebody said that.
Yeah.
Maybe it was number 15 that said that.
Yeah, he would say that too.
So anyway, I'm increasingly inclined to feel sympathy towards conspiracy theories, which are censored from the internet.
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel like, why do they, like, and this has been, because years ago, all over the internet, there were like blogs and YouTube videos and sites about nuclear bombs being fake.
Really?
Yeah. And no one went to them because it was a crazy idea. And no one would still go to them or care about them at all, except they've all been pulled from the internet. And except the most obscure places. So, that makes me think, well, why does Google care if people think nuclear bombs aren't real?
Indeed.
Right? Like, why would that be a problem?
Well, they're just doing their civic duty, you know.
Right.
Because they're the arbiters of truth, and, you know.
Let's discuss some reasons why they not be real. One, nobody ever fires them ever.
Uh-huh.
Not even to test them to see if they're still working. We haven't fired them in like 40, 50 years. How do we even know? How does anybody know that their bombs still work?
Good question.
They could all be duds. They could be using they're all software. They could be using software that has a bug. No one knows. Russia doesn't blow them up. We don't blow them up. The only people who do blow them up is occasionally North Korea, supposedly inside of a deep underground cavern that no one can ever see, which just happens to look just like an earthquake. You know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah.
Isn't that a bit suspicious? That how can you have a military product that you intend to use as your last line of defense that you never ever test ever? Isn't that weird?
A little weird.
It makes me go like, if I was a military and I would at least blow one up in the ocean, or if people don't like that because of the whales, fine. I'll blow one up in the Mojave Desert, or I'll dig my own bunker way underground and blow one. I don't know. Right? Or if I'm Russia, Siberia. Or we could just test on Antarctica. Or whatever, right? There's lots of places to
test
blow
in
up
Antarctica.
a bomb.
It's like perfect for that.
There's lots of places to test and blow up a bomb, and they never do. They never do. Okay. It also falls into the it's bigger and better. It has this rhetoric around it. It's always amping itself up in the total abstinence of anything ever happening.
Right.
Which is a sign of a lie.
Mm-hmm.
Right. If people are like, it's like when someone gets caught in a lie, they always make it more. You know, like if someone's caught cheating on their spouse, they never are like, oh yeah, I was just at the bowling alley with Steve. It's like I was at the bowling alley with Steve, and he fell down. He busted his head. I had to take him to the ER.
Yeah, and the FBI showed up.
Yeah. It ratchets up and up and up, right?
Right.
In the total absence. Number 3, a big thing for me, is that Hiroshima and Nagasaki are fine. It's supposedly this giant, like we just went over why they might be fine, but like nothing really, maybe the reason they didn't find any evidence of things happening to them is because nothing happened. They were just firebombed like normal.
Yep.
Nah, I'm just saying.
Yeah. I mean, there's a certain amount of explosives that you can produce a mushroom cloud with. I mean, mushroom clouds aren't unique to nuclear weapons.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. And then people say that what they always say, but there's a video because boomer people, by which I mean not just boomer in age, but boomer in spirit.
Sure.
Believe whatever they see on TV.
Yeah.
And I always say, well, there's also a video of kaijus attacking Tokyo. And it looks just as, actually it looks more real.
Yeah.
Than a lot of the space stuff. And so I'm just, you can make anything appear on the TV screen.
It's true.
And honestly, when you watch the videos, I want people to go back and watch those videos. Just go back and watch those videos for a minute. and ask yourself a few key questions. Like, there'd be like these videos of like a house and some trees getting blown over and like dust. Have you seen those?
Yeah.
And then you say, okay, but why is the camera not getting blown over? It's supposedly in the middle of a nuclear bomb and it's just steady as can be.
Well, that's a good question. Why doesn't the camera shake? Yeah.
Just steady. And then it has the same problem as the moon, frankly, which is that I can't run my film through the x-ray scanner at the airport, but somehow the film, remember it's film, not digital in this age, is sitting literally at ground zero of a nuclear bomb and it's just completely recoverable. He's just like, oh yeah, and then I just got the camera and I just ran the film. And they say, wasn't that film literally in the middle of a nuclear bomb? I go, yeah. But it's Kodak, man. They're great. Woo! They make some film. Let me tell you. But where's that? What you say? Well, wait a minute. Doesn't it like record light and like radiation is, and there's all this giant flash and this heat and it's like, yeah, but you can still see great. And a lot of them, I don't want to get too in the weeds, but a lot of them look like little tiny models when you actually sit down and look at it.
I mean, they do.
It looks like something George Lucas put together for a scene in Tatooine, which looked great, by the way.
Yep.
On screen. And then you say, what if you just did that and then just used a big gust of air to whoosh, and then you said it's a nuclear bomb. And then you gave it, and then you use this as maybe a propaganda piece to get the communists to not come more into Europe after you wiped out the Japanese and beat Hitler because you didn't want to deal with the communists. Maybe that's what it was. Maybe Russia's army was too scary and you wanted to frighten them. I don't know. I'm just spitballing here.
Just, we're exploring an idea, that's all.
Yeah, okay. I mean, at least in the space thing, space isn't as radioactive as being in the ground zero of an A-bomb.
Right.
So they could be like, well, our film, yeah, there's some space radiation, but our film it's different. But this is like, no, your camera, and it can't be encased in lead because the lens has to be open to see the light. That then goes right onto and X-rays and gamma rays scatter, so it will get, like, there's no way around that.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If there's, maybe like so many of these things, it's just a way to keep funneling money into a nuclear weapons program for something that doesn't exist. Maybe the whole government is just a fear into money machine. Like, oh, you need to keep giving us money because COVID.
What a great description. Fear into money machine. I love it.
It's what it is. It's like you be afraid terrorism, and that's why Homeland Security needs all this money. And then, well, the Mexicans, and then money for no, we're not going to build a wall with it, but we just need the money. And then COVID. Oh, we need so much money for COVID.
Just piles of money.
Nuclear bombs, and, are they real? I don't know. But it just is a bit weird that we're always, in terms of society, defending it's all these invisible attackers.
Yes, indeed.
Things you can never see. Terrorism. COVID,
right.
Nuclear bombs that never strangely blew up ever. Despite there being supposedly millions and millions and millions of nuclear bombs held by several countries, many of whom are very questionable in their ethics, including us, having these bombs, they never go off. Pakistan and India never, despite them being the first two people that would blow each other up if they had nuclear bombs.
Now, I've got a consistency bone to pick with you here, Simo. Earlier in the episode, you were hinting, but sort of hinting that we may be headed for nuclear war. And now you're saying that nuclear weapons, or at least you're hinting that they may not exist. What's your position here?
I was just dog whistling for comedic effect. I don't really think we're heading to nuclear war. Woof, woof. Or am I? Right? So, see, Exactly. Now, but I'm just, are they real? I don't know. Maybe this show is like, if they are real, then now you're prepared to defend yourself against them. And maybe that's something. Maybe this show is a bit like Harry Potter and the School for Defense against the Dark Arts. And that we're also preparing you to defend yourself against pretend forces of evil.
Maybe.
And who really knows at this point? I don't know if they're real. I don't know if but I know how to survive them if they are real. And now you do too.
You know, people ask me if I know when you're being serious.
Yeah.
And I tell them no.
Yeah. The trick is I don't know when I'm being serious either. People tell me that.
Rings of operators, lattice theory,
And I'm always like, I wish I knew when I was being serious.
hydrodynamics, astrophysics, weather control, atomic energy, computer technology, and theory of automata, game theory, rings of operators, lattice theory, shock waves, hydrodynamics, astrophysics, weather control,
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
atomic energy,
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
computer technology,
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
theory of automata,
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
I swear there's one video of like of an explosion and it's just like it's above the clouds like a sky one, and you look at it and you're like, wait a minute, that's just the sun coming up.
You'll have to send that to me.